And we are live here today, live from Toronto, and today's Facebook Live is about understanding neuroplasticity, the neuroscience behind your anxiety, how you do it and how you can stop doing it now. And also, please stay tuned to right at the end. Well, actually, I've already made the announcement, but I'm going to remake the announcement of something really cool that's happening on Thursday at the end. So let's talk about anxiety and neuroscience behind anxiety. So essentially what's going to happen is there's some kind of trigger that causes you to have imaginary games inside your head, catastrophize, imagine things happening really, really bad. If you followed along with these series, you'll know that anxiety, you can have a felt sense of the feelings of anxiety in the moment. Hey Sandra, if you're watching, give me a wave, give me a thumbs up as always, so I know that there are people out there watching. So back to anxiety. There's a trigger. Something may or may not have happened. But anxiety can only live in the future, meaning that something may have happened in the past, but you're not having anxiety for that. Something's about to happen in the future and you're catastrophizing it. You're imagining it, but you may forget that you're imagining it. And you start to fill your body with all these chemicals, neurotransmitters, stuff like adrenaline, fight, flight or freeze. Hey Christina. And fight, flight or freeze, or cortisol, which is the stress wasting hormone. And then you start to play these games unconsciously, generally below the surface. You're not aware that you're doing them, which is causes you to stay in this vicious cycle of anxiety. So I'm going to teach you some tools very, very quickly on how you can break that using neuroscience. What they found with neuroscience is neuroscience is a thing called plasticity, neuroplasticity. And what neuroplasticity basically means is your brain is a bit like plastic. It's a bit like plasticine, if you remember, or Play-Doh from my North American friends. It's always changing, it's always shifting. The brain you have today is not the brain that you had yesterday, a week ago, a month ago, a year ago when you were born. It's a different brain. So what happens oftentimes is when someone has anxiety, let's take an extreme form of anxiety that's rapid and fast acting like a phobia. When they would get people that had a phobia of, say, confined spaces, they were claustrophobic. They would put these people into a CAT scan or fMRI machine, thus triggering the anxiety. What the neuroscientists would find out is a certain part of the brain would start to fire off, would start to light up. These people would then have a panic attack. These neuroscientists were very smart. They gave these people an object. If you're watching, give me a wave, give me a thumbs up, let me know you're there. Doesn't matter what the object is. It's just a joypad from my games machine. It can be your cell phone, it can be your coffee, just make sure you don't burn. It can be a pen. Doesn't matter what the object is. But essentially, if you imagine this is the center line, this is the most important thing to focus on now, center line. You get an object, any object, and you simply pass it from one hand to the other, making sure your hand crosses the center line. I don't want to see you doing this, that does nothing. You actually have to get your hand and cross the center line. It's really simple, but just make sure your hand crosses the center line. What this essentially does is it starts to send blood to both hemispheres of your brain, the part that was responding in the old anxiety way and the fresh part. And after doing this for about 30 seconds, perhaps for some of you for a minute, what happens is when both, hey Tracy, hemispheres of the brain are, hey Rachel, are sent blood, you cannot do the anxiety in that moment. You cannot do the phobic response in that moment. It literally starts to change. Hey Yuan, it literally starts to change the plasticity of your mind. Another bit of neuroscience for you as well. If you're out there, if you're watching, give me a thumbs up, give me a wave. Got an announcement at the end. This is neuroscience and how the vicious cycle of anxiety and how you can stop it using some simple neuroscience. Here's another thing. In your brain, there's things called neurological pathways. Pretty simple, just think of them like roads. Now, most of you that are watching these videos now are probably suffering or have suffered from the symptoms of anxiety. If you have suffered from the symptoms of anxiety and that happens daily, put below in the comments so I can see who I'm speaking to now. So if you've been suffering from anxiety, if that's been an issue for you, just type yes in the comments box below, whether you're watching this live right now or on the replay. So what happens is when people have a anxiety response to something, they start to go down a road in their mind, neurological pathway. Think of like a road in a street. And because they've probably done it so many times, they do it automatically without thinking about it. Because there's a weird kind of comfort that comes from doing this. Because even though it makes you feel shitty and releases that fight, flight or flight adrenaline, hey Eric, it's a kind of comfort in knowing that this person was there yesterday. This entity, if you will, was there yesterday. And you kind of know what to expect, even though it makes you feel shit. Think of it a bit like a toxic relationship, but toxic relationship with yourself. So you start to go down that road called anxiety. And what happens is, it's much like a road that you've travelled. Imagine that you've travelled, you've driven, you've walked, you've ran the same way from home to work for many, many years. And you've probably done the trip so many times that you could close your eyes, although I don't recommend you do that yet. And you can travel from A to B without having to think about it. Who here's had the experience of getting in their car, driving from home to work or vice versa, and suddenly you arrive at your destination, home or work, and you're like, hey Eric, you're like, oh shit, I didn't even think about how I got here. What happened for the last 30 minutes? I just remember I was in my car and then I'm here. I didn't even think about consciously getting here. It just happens. That's how you do anxiety into the brain. So imagine, neuroscience, you're going down the road of anxiety. What these tools, hey Tracy, all these tools on this channel that I'm teaching you, what they do is you start to go down the anxiety road and we put a roadblock up there and we say, hey, you can't go down that road anymore. You can still get to your destination, which for most people who suffer from the symptoms of anxiety are peace, feeling safe, feeling in control. But you can't go down this road anymore. This road is closed. We're stopping the neurological process in the mind. And then what happens is when you do an object pass or any of the other tools that I teach on this very channel, or if you do one-on-one work with me, they stop that. They essentially put a roadblock up there, say you can't go down anxiety high road anymore, but you can still get home. You can still feel safe. You can still feel secure. You can still feel in control. And every time you neurologically stop that pattern by any of the tools, object pass or anything else on this channel, it stops, puts a roadblock. And science and studies show us that every time you stop a compulsive habit, whether that be a mental habit, obsessive compulsive thinking, every time you stop it, that neurological process, think the road in your mind, gets weaker and weaker and weaker. And let me ask you, hey Lynn, hey Tiffany, if you're out there, give me a thumbs up, give me a wave, or just say hi in the comments below. If there's a path, if there's a road that no one ever travels down anymore, what happens to that road? Comments below. You got 5 seconds. The road degenerates. It goes back to once what it was. Goes back to nature, goes back to grass, goes back to land. It literally disappears. Hey Debbie, I was watching Discovery Channel and they said in a documentary, I believe it's called The World Without Us. It's kind of fitting given what's going on in the world right now. But it takes about 100 years or so for the road to decay. Right? Yeah, overgrown, as Lynn says there. The World Without Us takes about 100 years in the really real world for that to happen. In your brain, the neurological pathway, it doesn't take anywhere near that time. It may be 1 time interrupting the pattern. It may be 2 times, it may be 3 times, it may be 4 times, it may be 7 times, heck, it might be 14 or 21 times. Everyone's a little bit different. But every time you put that proverbial roadblock up and stop it, the neurological pathway, the old way you used to do anxiety, gets weaker and weaker and weaker. And then you start to build a new way in your mind, a new road in your mind. And it's a new road to get home, so to speak. It's a new road to feel safety and security. But it's going to feel a bit weird traveling there. It's going to feel a bit weird traveling there because you've never done it before. It still gets you to the same destination, but it might take you twice as long to get there. It may be a winding road down some dark back streets. You might feel a bit uncomfortable. But the more you travel down that new road, the stronger that new neurological pathway gets. Hey Dawn, which in time, that becomes your new normal. Trigger, old anxiety cycle begins. Roadblock comes up, doing one of the techniques I've taught today, or any other techniques on this very channel for free, or if we do techniques and work together in person or over Skype, as I'm doing more sessions, or Zoom now, given that we're all self-contained and the success rate is just the same, you start to go down that new road, and that new road is your new possibility. That new road starts to become your new normal, your new default. So what happens? Trigger comes in, for a split second you feel a raise in those symptoms of anxiety. Roadblock, hey Barbara, hey Jen. Then you start to go down that new road of freedom, of peace, because that new neurological pathway has been wired in your brain to go down that new pathway. So just dropping some neuroscience, some neuroplasticity on you. That's how the anxiety circle works, or cycle, how you stop it. So announcement. On Thursday, 7 p.m, on this very channel, 7 p.m. Eastern, I'm going to be doing a free Facebook hypnotic virtual holiday or vacation for my North American friends. It's going to be 20 minutes, you and I. And you're going to put in the comments below this video, if you could go anywhere in the world, where would you like to go? If you could leave all your problems and this virus behind for now, it's all gone, doesn't exist. And you can go anywhere in the world safe and secure and do whatever you want. Where would you like to go? Put it in the comments below. Because on our hypnotic Facebook Live, 7 p.m. on this Thursday, April the 2nd, please note, not April the 1st, this is not a joke, April the 2nd, I'm going to hypnotize you to go to that vacation, to go to that destination, to go to that holiday. So although you may not be able to get out of your apartment or your house right now because you're self-quarantining, you can sure as hell take a vacation in your mind. 20 minutes is going to feel like 2 weeks. Now obviously I can't take you all to 10 different vacations because we'll be here all day. So I want you to put in the comments where you'd like to go. And the one that becomes the most popular will be the destination I'll be hypnotizing you to go on Thursday at 7 p.m. for our Facebook. You're going to see it. You're going to feel it. You're going to hear those sounds wherever it is. You're going to smell it. And you're going to taste it. You're going to have that virtual vacation in your mind for 20 minutes. It's going to be like 2 weeks on your central nervous system. Feeling amazing. So simply drop where you'd like to go below and join us on Thursday, 7 p.m, April the 2nd, right here, where I'll be hypnotizing you to go there. Hey Tiffany. Hey Camille. So I'll see you then, Thursday, 7 p.m, for our virtual hypnotic vacation. Remember, like, share this, comment it, put it in Facebook groups with other people that you feel may benefit from this. Because we're all in this together. Always believe.